Today on The Central Moment. The sting of injustice, especially when we're the victims of it, can be crippling and enraging. And where is God when that injustice comes? Does he even see it? Psalm 94 gives us some life-giving perspective and hope. Here's Dr. Jim Bradford with more on The Central Moment.
We're coming today to Psalm 94 in our continuing study this summer through the last half of the book of Psalms. Psalm 94, and in verse 1 of Psalm 94, God's identified in a very specific way that's pivotal to understanding this whole psalm. In fact, it's pivotal to understanding how God can work us through the places we've been personally felt violated and victimized. For he says in verse 2, rise up, judge of the earth. Not rise up, loving God, not rise up, Lord of our peace, but rise up, judge of the earth. Pay back the proud for what they deserve. So the psalmist is looking for justice here and refers to the Lord as the judge. And then he goes to the reasons that he wants the Lord to take on that role of judge. And he talks about the wicked. He talks about the victimizers. And he says in verse 5, they crush your people, Lord. They oppress your inheritance. They slay the widow and the foreigner. They murder the fatherless. So even right there, the widow, the foreigner, and the fatherless, those would be characteristics of the three most vulnerable groupings of people in this era, hundreds and hundreds of years before Christ came. In that culture, if you're a widow, you would struggle to find a means of surviving and living. If you were a foreigner, you would be disadvantaged with prejudice and second-class treatment. And if you were fatherless, you were adrift without reference points, both in terms of your identity as well as economically. And so the widow, the foreigner, the fatherless, here the victimizers come. Who do they prey on? People then stronger than themselves? Of course not. They prey on the most vulnerable among them. And this has been happening in their society. And they, on top of it, the next verse, they say, as they do this, the Lord doesn't see it. The Lord does not see, and the God of Jacob takes no notice. I've been doing this, nothing's changed. God hasn't apparently stopped me. I'm not even sure he sees. I can do what I want. And so they don't see any accountability to God. They see God as being passive when it comes to issues of justice. Well, God's going to come back, and he's going to weigh in on this pretty definitively. For in verse 9, in 10, he basically says, say what? I don't see this? I mean, who do you think I am? So in verse 9, does he who fashioned the ear not hear? Does he who formed the eye not see? Does he who disciplines nations not punish? Does he who teaches mankind lack knowledge? There's boom, 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 4 questions just to shatter that myth that God doesn't see, and with the implication he doesn't care. No, he says, well, and I like in Bible study, I always look for the verbs, powerful verbs here. Fashioned, formed, disciplines, teaches. God says, I'm the one who fashions. I'm the one who forms. I fashion the ear. I form the eye. You mean I can't hear? I can't see? And I'm the one who disciplines. And I'm the one who teaches. I do know how to bring justice. And so the whole psalm resolves at that point with something that God does in the present and then something he does in the future. In the present, the psalmist said, Lord, unless you had given me help, I would soon have dwelt in the silence of death. I mean, without your help, I was doomed. But, and here's the thing God is in the present, the Lord has become my fortress, and my God, the rock in whom I take refuge. Right now, God is my fortress and my strength. Sometimes we talk about just having a peace we can't explain. When the Spirit of God's living in us, a peace we can't explain. Sometimes we look at moments where we've been perhaps driving or at work, and God's literally supernaturally protects us from accidents. We just find these places where God becomes our refuge right now. And then in the future, and this ties us back to the beginning of the psalm, verse 23, he will repay them for their sins and destroy them for their wickedness. The Lord our God will destroy them. He is the judge. Many of us are uncomfortable with the wrath of God. I know people don't believe in God because they don't like a God who gets angry. Well, that holds up until you're the victim of injustice yourself. And then you wonder, like, where is God? And to the psalmist, God says, I'm right here to be your refuge right now. And there's a day coming where I will balance the scales of justice. May the Lord be our refuge. Lord, our refuge. We need you today. And we thank you that you are the God of justice. Amen.